Oncologists and other doctors in Dana-Farber told us that the cancer will continue to grow.
And they listed every single way that you would die from Hodgkin's.
No father wants to see his kid die before him.
I did not want to get the chemotherapy.
We just kept telling him, you're just going to have to do it, though.
That's all we know. We said, you're going to have to do it.
We didn't know there was other options, other things that he could do.
I knew there was going to come a time when it was just going to be too much, and I felt that I would rather die from the cancer than from the chemotherapy.
He was very determined to find his way through this disease, but doing things his own way.
Welcome to The Incurables. I'm Don Wildman. When we get sick, most of us do what seems logical. We seek medical attention. Our doctors diagnose, offer prescriptions, and we follow their advice. But sometimes that's not enough. Billy Best was an adventurous teenager with his whole life ahead of him. But when stricken with cancer, Billy was given a protocol that he felt was more deadly than the disease. The rebellious spirit of youth would drive him away from convention and towards finding a natural cure. Bill and Sue Best, a Massachusetts couple who desperately wanted a family, were unable to have children of their own. They were delighted when they were able to adopt Bill Jr. and Jenny.
We were adopted from different families, so it was pretty funny because we didn't look too much alike.
Billy was normally the one that people might notice was adopted with a little bit darker skin. I tended to maybe blend in, maybe with my parents a little more.
Reactions from people around us, people I didn't even know, would buy us gifts and send us cards and things because they were so excited for us to adopt two kids. I mean, it was awesome.
I always felt it was a very special thing, you know, a special bond in our family.
I think you do treasure your children because you had to wait, and waiting was very difficult, and we really wanted kids, so it was wonderful once they came.
The Bests eventually settled in Santa Cruz, California, a utopia for raising children.
Billy really thrived in California. He was a typical boy, riding his bikes, and you know, I was too.
He loved the warm weather, just the whole California scene. Somewhere along the way, he met someone, started skateboarding, and he's still doing it today, all these years later.
The Best family left California and returned to Massachusetts to be closer to family. Billy, a confident, determined teenager, made new friends and honed his skateboarding skills.
Billy, in his early teen years, again, was still an avid skateboarder.
Definitely a go-getter. He always wanted to take it to the next level skateboard. He was always a really determined kid.
But he also was his own person. He didn't like to be told what to do.
He's just very private, and he keeps his feelings in, and you know, sometimes he'll answer your questions, but he's kind of in his own thing. He wants to find his own answers to things.
If I had something that bothered me, I'd just go out and play soccer or skateboard and deal with it that way.
I think a lot of times I was the bad guy because I was strict and I would, punish him.
He was hard to handle just because he wanted to do things his way.
But overall, we had a good relationship.
Billy's boldness had played in his favor many times. But one weekend, the 14-year-old skater's bravado resulted in serious injury.
I had a friend of mine, he was my best friend at the time. His name's Alex, and we were gonna put our money together and build a skateboard ramp in my backyard.
One Saturday, he and his friend went down to the local hardware store. They needed something, nails or whatever.
We ended up just taking too long, and it got dark by the time we started our way back home. We were just skating pretty fast and not watching where we were going. I turned around and yelled at him to hurry up, and when I turned back around, I just saw lights, like bright lights, and it was the landscaping truck. The big mirrors that hang off, that caught my arm, and I ripped the mirror off the truck, but my arm just kind of fell
It was held on just by a couple pieces of skin.
The phone rang, and it was a police officer saying, "Your son has been hit by a car."
I don't know how you can be mad at someone in so much pain.
He ended up having, I believe it was 6 operations over a 2-year period of time.
It was a lot of stress. I mean, just the initial trauma and being in the hospital and being on the medication and having surgery, like those things are a lot of stress on your body.
His life changed. He couldn't do sports through a lot of the time because he was in a cast. He would have to have this surgery on the tendon, or he would not be using his hand for the rest of his life. And he just kept saying, "I don't want any more surgeries." He had already had 4. Then we tried to convince him that this was the right thing to do, and finally I said, "Well, Billy, you have to have the operation." By this point in his life, he'd get quiet and just seemed to be resigned to the situation.
After years of reconstructive surgery and rehabilitation, Billy's life returned to normal. He was able to resume his skateboarding, but he had no idea of the danger that lay ahead.
I was a freshman in high school, and it was just almost the summertime. We were going on a trip down to Washington, D.C.
We weren't allowed to bring our skateboards. We managed to like smuggle them and then bribe the bus driver to meet us down the street after he dropped us off to, give us our skateboards.
And we just, we went and saw the sights, and we got to see the Capitol building, and we got to go on tours of the U.S. Mint, and it was just a great weekend. On the way back was when I really had I had a tight back and a tight neck, and it really hurt when I turned it, and it was sore right there. Like a week or 2 went by, and I was not acting how I usually act.
Billy came down to my office. He wasn't feeling that great, so I took a look at him and noticed he had this lump on his neck. And I said, "Well, I think this is something we probably should have checked out just to see what's going on. Some kids sometimes it's a sore throat, swollen lymph glands, you don't know." So called his mom and told her what I had seen, and said that I really recommend that you have the pediatrician take a look at it.
The doctor said, "Well, it's a lymph node. Did you have a cold recently?" And Billy said yes. He said, "Probably nothing to worry about, but if it gets any bigger, you come back and see me."
The lump came back, and it was bigger, and it was really swollen. I couldn't turn my neck, and it was just, I was sore and I was tired. I couldn't stay awake in school.
They did an x-ray, and first we went to see the doctor upstairs. We went downstairs to the x-ray room, and I had forgotten something, and I went back upstairs to the doctor's office.
She saw the nurses looking at the x-ray, and they looked concerned. And when they turned and looked at her, saw her coming in, they kind of gave her a look like, like a real sorry look.
The doctors feared the worst and explained to Sue that additional tests would be necessary.
The doctor had certain hours you could call him, so I was going to call him around noon to find out about the test. And the doctor said, "Well, I think your son has a form of lymphoma, possibly Hodgkin's disease." I just was flabbergasted, but also keeping a straight face because Billy was right there.
She hangs up, and I say, "Oh, what'd he say?" She said, she's like, "Well, they think it's Hodgkin's." And she did a good job, until they were sure, until they were 100% that it was cancer. She didn't want to, say that word.
So Billy went to his room, and I went down and just started crying. And my husband looked at me in shock. He couldn't even imagine what was going on, and I just screamed, "Billy's got cancer."
We were actually both crying because we just didn't know what else to do. It's a terrible thing. When you hear your kid has cancer, you just go, "What? Can't be true. Can't be true."